Alright, hello everyone, and thank you for tuning in once again to the Black Box Podcast, BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. Well, today we have another Zodiac Killer upload, and this one is just a little bit different. We're going to be talking about a suspect, George Hill Hodell, and his name is spelled Hodel. When I was first reading that, I thought it'd be pronounced Hodel, but yeah, it's pronounced Hodell. And this one is different because I found out about this guy all sort of a backwards manner. I was reading online about just sort of how some people spread disinfo and misinformation about the Zodiac Killer. And I found this one thing that said, and I will tell you, a teacher in France had solved the final Zodiac cipher, and that they had learned the true identity of the Zodiac Killer. And I'm just like, drop everything. What's this going on? A school teacher in France named Yves, who teaches literature in the suburbs of Paris, solved the cipher and discovered that the name of the Zodiac Killer is spelled Hodel. And when I was looking at this stuff online, the explanation provided, it's actually referring to a very particular symbol that is of Celtic origin. Like, this is how I was kind of finding out about George Hill Hodell. They're saying, though, that the reason that it's taken people so long to solve the final cipher is because it's actually just meant to represent Celtic symbology. It's meant to represent Celtic symbols. So that's how I got involved with that. Then I encountered the name Steve Hodell, and I didn't recognize it at first. And then he's talking, though, about how his father, George Hill Hodell, was not only the Zodiac Killer, but also the murderer in the Black Dahlia case. And I was like, oh yes, I remember this guy. I saw him on TV before saying his father was the Black Dahlia murderer. The Black Dahlia Avenger. He has an entire series of books out there, multiple things on the Black Dahlia case, which seems like it is kind of his forte, the thing that he is more well known for, the Black Dahlia case. And this is a Zodiac Killer upload, so we won't be talking too much about that. I'm not even super familiar with the Black Dahlia, to be honest. But another thing, though, is he has a book out there called Most Evil, Part 2, which is about how his father is also the Zodiac Killer. And, like, you got this school teacher in France who claims they've solved the cipher, which reveals the name Hodel, albeit, though, it's done backward. The letters revealed were, let's see, that would be Ledoh. That's what's revealed. Okay? You following everything? Two different people said that they've come to the same conclusion, that they've got the name Hodell from the cipher. And, you know, you've heard me say this on this channel. If you've heard any of the Zodiac Killer uploads, that once you start linking together the theories of multiple high-profile murder cases, the likelihood of it being true is much lower. But it doesn't stop with only the Black Dahlia. Nope. This guy's also saying that his father should be the prime suspect in a series of murders that were committed in Chicago in the 1940s. The lipstick murders. What's all this going at? Is it just that his father likes to kill people? No. It is that the serial killer, George Hill Hodell, alleged serial killer, alleged perpetrator, our suspect of the day, was so brilliant that he knew how to commit mass murders around the country and not get caught. This is tied to a few things. George Hill Hodell had an IQ of around 170. He was obsessed with surrealist art. And this is what tipped off the whole thing for his son, Steve Hodell, was that his son had he discovered a photograph of Elizabeth Short. I mean, I don't actually believe it's been 100% confirmed to be Elizabeth Short, but he says he found a photograph of Elizabeth Short in his home, and he began to sort of investigate more and more about his father. He's been saying this stuff for years. I mean, it's been probably more than a decade since I first heard him talk about the Black Dahlia case on on television. It's been a long time. But he's saying, though, that's the key to the Zodiac Killer mystery. This is a repeat offender. Remember, though, the Zodiac did say that the Zodiac committed 37 murders, right? What this is kind of tying to is that this guy learned how to kill people. George Hill Hodell. He learned how to commit a variety of murders in a different way, as almost like an art form. Because once again, his father was all about surrealist art that was depicting the human body in weird forms. And that's why he believed that he murdered Elizabeth Short, bisecting the body in half and displaying it on the side of the road. It's also one of the victims in the lipstick murders was cut in half as well. But it's just like, that's how he didn't get caught. A little bit of activity in this city, a little bit of activity in this city, Elizabeth Short in Los Angeles, the lipstick murders in Chicago, and of course the Zodiac Killer activity in the Bay Area. That's how he escaped capture for all this time. What we should say, though, about the symbol that claims to reveal the letters Hodel is that it was mailed to Paul Averly, and it was placed in the space where you would have the return address on an envelope, and there's a card in the envelope which also had that same symbol next to the letter Z written in plain English and the Zodiac cross. Like the circle with the cross in it, the Zodiac symbol. Okay, so is that a signature saying that this is signed Hodell, Zodiac Killer? Is that really what that's going? Is that what that is? Is that like the key to the mystery? A lot of challenge questions that we have coming out in this episode. One of the things we can kind of think about is that when you're dealing with these high-profile cases, where there are going to be similarities in a lot of them. We also talked about the Texarkana Moonlight murders, which were going on at a similar time, around 1946. It's like, I mean, that has striking similarities as well. Someone wearing a hood, targeting lovers' lanes. I mean, I don't believe, though, he's been implicated in that one by his son, Steve Hodell. But what really is the connection with all of this stuff? Or is it even connected at all? I mean, is it just that a lot of these high-profile murders have somewhat similar psychology behind them? That's what I said about the Moonlight murders and the Zodiac Killer. It was like, either the Zodiac Killer studied this case very closely, or they just have some similar psychology going on. And you could use Elizabeth Short and the Black Dahlia as another very good example of that. Some of the other things about the Black Dahlia is that messages were sent taunting the police. Elizabeth Short's purse was mailed to the police, so they would know definitively that, yes, the person mailing that was the murderer. So, I mean, to Steve Hodell's credit, once again, that's Steve talking about his father, it is that these things aren't that normal. When you deal with murders and when you're dealing with even serial killers, the things that are not super normal are the writing letters to the police, cutting paper out of a magazine and sort of putting it together in sort of a copy and cut and paste letter and taunting the police that way, making the phone calls, the taunts, the bizarre behavior, the trying to sort of tease the police with revealing the identity, revealing your own identity as the murderer. All of those things are not super common when it comes to a serial killer or a murderer. So that's one of the reasons why Steve Hodell believes that all this stuff is connected and that his father, George Hill Hodell, is the Zodiac Killer. It's a bit of a stretch, though. I have one big challenge, though. To everything that we put forward, does the Zodiac Killer show any sign of medical knowledge? Now, George Hill Hodell was a brilliant physician. He was also, I believe that he actually studied surgery, but he was not a practicing surgeon for most of his medical career, if I understood that correctly. But he did study surgery to the point where he had spent hundreds of hours studying this in medical school. Okay, so, where is that in the Zodiac Killer? Where is the similarity in the way that the actions were performed? Cecilia Ann Shepard was stabbed 10 times, 5 times in the front, 5 times in the back. Where's the medical knowledge there? I mean, if Elizabeth Short was so carefully bisected that the killer went through her vertebrae, cutting the body in half, which is a similarity that was found in the lipstick murders in Chicago. Another child was cut in half. Where is that in the Zodiac Killer case? Where are those details? Where is the medical knowledge? That's my biggest challenge question of all to you. Where do you see the signs that the Zodiac Killer was a doctor? Now, here's another thing, though. When you're talking specifically about the connection between George Hill Hodell and the Zodiac Killer, intentional misspellings in the letters, what's up with that? Spelling Christmas with 2 S's at the end, Christ Mass. One of the things, though, and this perhaps to Steve Hodell's genuine credit as a genuine contribution to the whole thing, the thing that he was kind of putting forward on his YouTube channel, and his YouTube channel, by the way, is just Steve Hodell, Hodel, is that those are intentionally placed there to be confusing on purpose. That someone like the Zodiac Killer would have been of above average intelligence. Why is he misspelling all of these words? That it's just done on purpose to be confusing so that people will be constantly guessing and be like, what does he mean by that? 2 S's at the end of Christmas. Is it symbolic of something? It's just meant to kind of get people to ask questions and to always keep people thinking about the subject. Well, I mean, at this point, we just got to ask ourselves. I mean, first I would say, though, maybe he has a point, though, about the misspellings in the letters. And I want to learn a little bit more about the methods and the way that they kind of unraveled this kind of Celtic symbology in the final letter. And it's an interesting explanation about how they get Hodel from the Celtic symbol. But the thing is, though, it's a very, very big thing to say that these 3 major mass murders, not mass murders, I mean these 3 major murdering events are all done by the same person, the Zodiac Killer, the death of Elizabeth Short, the lipstick murders in Chicago, that they're all done by the same person. But is this just the work of somebody who is so brilliant that he knew how to commit large-scale murders that would get a lot of attention and avoid capture? Is this how he operated, moving city to city, so he would never get caught? Because people are going to be talking about the Zodiac Killer for ages. They're going to talk about the Black Dahlia for ages. And they were talking about the lipstick murders. Is that what's going on here? Probability is not on his side. We can say that much. Once again, I'm curious about the medical background of the Zodiac Killer. Does anybody else see that there? None of the Zodiac victims were bisected or even like remotely cut up with a scalpel or anything like that. Also, you have the Zodiac targeting people in a variety of ways, sometimes with handguns, sometimes with knives, targeting lovers' lanes. Well, how does that fit into the Elizabeth Short thing? I mean, you could say it's just kind of like being angry toward women, I guess, but that's a little bit different than what we kind of see with even the lipstick murders in Chicago. Not to mention the murder of the child, the one we mentioned, the body cut in half that was of a child. Did the Zodiac Killer ever target any children? I don't think so. Furthermore, some other kind of points of contention. The Zodiac is somebody very methodical, kind of carries the exact length of material that is necessary to tie somebody up. I mean, Elizabeth Short was cut in half and her face was slashed. That's a little bit different. Where are those markings on the Zodiac victims? Furthermore, the Zodiac also would go out wearing a hood. Where is that in any of these other murderous cases? It just seems like, are we just experiencing the phenomenon that people who are involved with high-profile murders have some similar psychology? Is that just what's going on? That these people have kind of a psychological similarity that is accounting for the reasons why all these cases appear to kind of have that similar fashion. And you could probably pull a handful of other examples out of American history if you dig deep enough, right? I think we could find some. I even mentioned the Moonlight Murders, which wasn't part of the presentation at all. They don't accuse him of that one. Texarkana 1946. At least not that I've read or watched so far. I mean, the book, if you want to read the book that's out, this is called Most Evil Part 2. Most Evil is also the title of the show that features George Hill Hodell, which is by Dr. Michael Stone, the Hierarchy of Evil guy. But the title of this book on the Zodiac Killer is Most Evil Part 2. And Part 1, I believe, deals more with the Black Dahlia case. The Black Dahlia Avenger is another thing that Steve Hodell has written. He talks a lot about the Black Dahlia murder. And once again, that's the first thing that I heard about from him ages ago. There's also the YouTube channel, Steve Hodell. And once again, the French teacher, the French school teacher, we should say, Yves Persson, was someone who also came to the conclusion that the symbols are revealing Hodel. I'll post a link to that in the comments section, the description box or something, because I think that is a very helpful thing to kind of just, it's an interesting presentation, that's what we can say. Well, I think this is going to turn into something a little bigger, so let's stay tuned, and let's kind of explore this a little bit more. Until next time.